Friends, fellow citizens, and soldiers of the Army of the United States, I bid you welcome to the festivities of this hour. With emotions of profound gratitude to God, the author of liberty and judge of destiny, we celebrate another birthday of the great American Republic. Looking reverently and affectionately upon her face, yet fair and fresh in her national youth, we seem to hear her exclaim, "I still live." Even though we are burdened with debt, involved in war, her hills whitened with tents from military encampments, her very soil filled with shot, shell, and human gore, while treason still exists and defiant over a portion of her land, she still lifts up her voice with strength and summons her children in prouder tones than ever. We assemble together and kneel with patriotic devotion around her altar. From our hearts we obey, or we love our country, and because of that love for her, we are here today. We recognize no South, no North, no West, and no East as a separate interest. We meet today upon soil reclaimed to the Union by our victorious arms in a city, New Bern, North Carolina, where 1 year ago, there was no public recognition of our nation's independence, where no peal of bells or salvo of cannon ushered in the festal morning. But today is different. Today, thank God, the old flag flutters again in the breeze along the shores and these waters. In every one of the 34 states, the Star-Spangled Banner floats proudly today. The work of recovery, however, goes bravely on. A series of brilliant successes by land and water is just about to climax in a battle before the rebel capital of Richmond, Virginia, which will decide the fate of the Southern Confederacy and hopefully end this wicked war. Meanwhile, summoned at such a time as this, may we not appropriately review the great rebellion and war now upon our hands and compare it to the former revolutionary struggle of 1776. You see, the wars of 1776 and 1861 are entitled to be called the two great wars of America. One of them is finished and has passed into history. The other is incomplete yet. In these struggles, the belligerents have belonged to the same Anglo-Saxons. Today, we are said to be engaged in a civil war. But so was the War of 1776 a civil war. It was one of brother against brother, father against son. The British realm and its transatlantic colonies were but one household. And the truth is that a civil war may be as justifiable and as necessary as a foreign war. The moral quality of such a strife cannot be decided by questions of race or descent. Both of these wars began in rebellion. The patriot of the Revolutionary War was no less a rebel than the secessionists of the present day. Those who for any reason throw the obligations and allegiance to the supreme power are rebels in the eyes of the law. Whether they shall continue to be branded as rebels depends partly upon the justice of their cause, but more importantly upon their success. Rebellion in the early stages is treason. After its firm establishment, however, in power, it is patriotism and glory. The rebellion of 1776 passed on triumphantly to this latter matter. That of 1861 seems unlikely to do so. Whether it shall enjoy an honorable history remains to be seen, and will it be speedily determined remains to be seen. It must work out its own salvation. and make its anniversary a nation's gala day, as the first great rebellion has done, or else it will sink beneath the world's notice and contempt. For there's no intermediate state for it between political hell or heaven. A resemblance between these two wars can be seen in the variety of individual opinions which exist respecting them. In 1776, there were conservative and radical men, extremists on both sides of the agitating questions of the day, as we see to it be now. This mess continue to be the case so long as people are born with varying temperaments and educated to varying tastes. That the community should be divided into supporters of the American Union and seceders from it is perhaps no more strange than there should have been Whigs and Tories in the Revolutionary War. On both sides, men and women with families left their peaceful homes at short notice, uttered a hurried farewell as they kissed away the falling tears, and departed to the seat of war, not knowing, not once thinking whether they should ever return. Exile has been cheerfully borne. The dangers of the battlefield and the discomforts of the hospital, all tending to show that the self-sacrificing spirit of the revolutionary heroes still exists in their descendants. By tens and hundreds of thousands, they may be counted among the officers and enlisted volunteers of the Union Army. But there are several points of striking difference between the rebellion of 1776, which resulted in the American Union, and the rebellion of 1861, whose precise destiny has not yet been reached. They were greatly dissimilar in respect to their statement of justifying causes. For 1776, no political document has ever penned or been echoed around the world more sublimely than the Declaration of Independence. The people that could so express their grievances and their rights as they stood at the world's judgment bar were and right ought to be a free and independent people. However, let's now examine the ceded states of the so-called Confederate government. And what is their statement of justifying causes for the steps they have taken? If there be one fundamental vice of society in all the rebellious states which has tended to nurture this rebellion, shall we not attempt in some suitable and just manner to weaken and remove the evil that it may harm and distract us no longer? You know to what I refer: domestic slavery. They cherish it because it supports their aristocratic social system, which they have deliberately chosen and are confessedly fighting for. But we reject and oppose it. It is a curse to the state which upholds it, an unspeakable injury to the colored people themselves, and still greater injury to their masters. Our forefathers had no wish at first for separation from the mother country, and no lofty aspirations of power. Had their just demands been met, the American Revolution might have been postponed, and the British throne still be the center of our allegiance. But taxes without representation and other outrageous feats of legislation and acts by the royal governors were more than they could bear. What is the principle of the present rebellion? The southern states were willing to remain connected with the Union so long as they could rule it. If they could no longer rule it, they determined to ruin the government of their fathers and set up another one, which will be wholly their own. Yet for this cause they have passed the ordinance of secession. For this cause they have inaugurated a new revolution. For this cause they fired upon Fort Sumter. For this cause they have already shed the blood of 30,000 free men. And in this respect, in the two contests, the facts appear to be reversed. The weaker party is now the oppressors and the lofty pretenders to power. 8 millions are attempting to lord it over 20 millions. The secessionists of the present day are the British of the past. The North is now where the struggling colonies were in the olden time, doing battle for liberty against oppression, for democracy against aristocracy, for right against organized, pampered, overbearing wrong. Now the least resemblance can we discover in spirit or principle between our revolutionary fathers and the revolutionists of this day. What will be the effect of this conflict in developing character, in rising up great men like George Washington and John Adams, Patrick Henry, John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, remains to be proved. Will this great nation crisis call forth another generation of like-minded patriots? When this war shall cease, and a settlement be made of the various matters at issue between the two sections, it will come to pass that a better understanding will prevail between them than ever before. The states now vainly attempting to establish separate independence will become truly independent and truly great when, giving up their aristocratic notions, they begin to stimulate free labor, establish free schools, call out the energies of all classes by elevating rather than depressing them, and level up society to a standard of general intelligence and thrift. For by this course can they recover from the terrible falling resulting from this war. Soldiers, I'm inclined to take a hopeful view of this future. I hear liberty proclaimed throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof, going forward in the steps of a truly free and Christian civilization. I see my countrymen and women attaining to a purer, nobler personal life. I see our government having survived the shock of war and having maintained both the form and spirit of democracy. I see her unfurling her flag of maybe 40 or 50 bright stars from the masthead of more vessels than their combined navies and merchant marine can boast. And as ages roll on, and her population increases, and her wealth accumulates, and her cities grow numerous, and her churches, hospitals, colleges, and schools be counted by hundreds of thousands, we shall still behold in her greatness the influence of her present trials and new evidence of the exceeding goodness of God unto her. So let me close by saying this. May the bold throats that today echo her praises and the star-spangled banners that stream above her soil be ever defenders of the liberty. Hail to the Union and all the states. Amen.